All right, welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive right into it. Think about this for a second. If you were driving a vintage classic car, you wouldn't maintain it using the exact same schedule and the exact same fluids as a brand new sports car fresh off the lot, would you? Well, the human body works pretty much the exact same way. What we're looking at today is essentially a blueprint for upgrading the older male body from simply surviving to actively thriving. We're going to unpack the science of how your nutritional requirements fundamentally shift as you age, and why stubbornly sticking to the habits of your 30s might actually be secretly undermining your health in your 60s and beyond.
So what is the secret to healthy aging? It's kind of the ultimate question, isn't it? To find the answer, we don't need to look into the future. We actually need to look into the past. Specifically, we're going to pivot to the legendary mid-20th century longevity of seniors living on the Ryukyu Islands in Japan, which you probably know better as Okinawa. These islanders cracked a biological code that allowed them to live remarkably long, disease-free lives. And the crazy thing? It started entirely with what was on their plates.
And this brilliantly illustrates the foundation of their success. This is their traditional diet, circa 1950. A staggering 69% of their caloric intake came from a single nutrient-dense source, the sweet potato. I mean, wow! Rice made up just 12%, with grains, soy, and legumes rounding out the rest. It was this naturally low-calorie, incredibly nutrient-rich baseline. And the result of eating this way? During that era, an average Okinawan was 8 times less likely to die from coronary artery disease than an American of the exact same age. It really just proves that aging gracefully isn't just luck, It's about giving your body the right operating environment.
Okay, here's the roadmap for our explainer today. 1. Longevity lessons. 2. The engine upgrade, focusing on protein. 3. The framework upgrade, focusing on vitamin K2. 4. The coolant system, all about hydration. And finally, 5. A blueprint for healthy aging.
Let's start with Section 1, Longevity Lessons, Avoiding the Pitfalls.
While the Okinawans had these wonderfully active, community-driven lifestyles, modern seniors often fall into accidental nutritional traps, and the most glaring one is what's called the tea and toast syndrome. What happens is, as guys age, maybe a partner passes away or the kids move out, they find themselves just cooking for one. Their appetite naturally shrinks, so they revert to simple, easy foods. We're talking toast, a cup of tea, maybe some canned soup or crackers. It seems totally harmless, but ignoring nutrient density and protein is a fast track to physical decline. This syndrome leads directly to malnutrition, severe muscle loss, and real frailty. Worse yet, a diet that's low in protein and salt, combined with drinking a lot of tea or water, vastly increases the risk of hyponatremia, which is a really dangerous drop in your blood sodium levels.
Moving on to Section 2, the engine upgrade, protein and anabolic resistance.
To avoid that frailty we just talked about, we absolutely have to focus on muscle mass. But doing this completely flips traditional nutritional advice on its head. We've always been told, right, to eat more vegetables. But actually, for a man over 65, protein foods need to be at the absolute center of the plate, with the vegetables just surrounding them. Why? Well, because older adults generally just have smaller appetites. If you fill up on veggies first, you're not going to have any room left for the protein. Starting around age 30, we naturally start losing muscle mass, and that decline accelerates heavily once we hit our 60s. Protein isn't just for bodybuilders, guys. It keeps your immune system, your organs, and your brain working and renewing minute by minute.
So, the crucial point here is understanding exactly why you need so much more protein as you get older. It comes down to this physiological condition called anabolic resistance. Basically, as you age, your muscles become deaf to normal amounts of protein. If protein is the signal that tells your muscles to grow and repair, an aging body needs a much louder voice just to hear that signal.
And to put that into perspective, the clinical comparison is absolutely staggering. In studies measuring muscle protein synthesis, researchers found that if you give a 22-year-old guy 20 grams of protein in a meal, his muscles respond perfectly. Give him 40 grams, and there's really no extra benefit. But when they tested 71-year-old men, their muscles were completely unresponsive to 20 grams, like completely deaf to it. To achieve the exact same muscle synthesis as the 22-year-old, the 71-year-old needed 40 grams of protein in a single sitting. You literally have to double the dose per meal just to maintain the engine you currently have. No way around it.
All right, let's look at Section 3, the framework upgrade, vitamin K2.
Listen, a powerful engine is completely useless if the chassis is crumbling underneath it. Upgrading both your bone density and your heart health relies heavily on a nutrient you might not be super familiar with, vitamin K2. Now, vitamin K1 comes from leafy greens and helps with blood clotting, but K2 is a totally different beast.
It's found in fermented foods like the Japanese dish natto and certain animal products. The way K2 works across our lifespan is fascinating. Kids need high K2 levels to support rapid bone growth as their skeletons develop, but on the flip side of life, seniors need K2 just as desperately to combat the rampancy of osteoporosis and to drastically reduce age-related bone density decline.
Think of vitamin K2, and specifically the highly bioavailable MK7 variant, as a biological traffic cop for your calcium. Calcium is great, sure, but left to its own devices, it can accumulate in your blood vessels, which leads to arterial calcification and heart disease. Yikes. But when you ingest K2, it activates two key proteins. First, it activates osteocalcin, which actively pulls calcium into your bones where it actually belongs. At the exact same time, it activates matrix GLA protein, or MGP, which binds to free-floating calcium and keeps it out of your arteries. It literally forces the calcium out of your heart and into your skeleton. It's a real game changer.
Okay, moving right along to Section 4, the coolant system, hydration.
Hydration is honestly the silent, hidden danger for older men. Consider this stat. Adults over the age of 65 are 4 times more likely to be dehydrated. 4 times! Why? Well, because as you age, your natural thirst sensation simply fades away. Your body's internal alarm system for needing water just stops ringing. It's like evolution unfortunately forgot to send a memo to our aging bodies saying we still need fluid even if we don't necessarily feel like drinking it. And to compound that risk even further, men face a 2.5 times higher risk of dehydration than women. This is largely because men typically have a higher muscle mass, which naturally requires a lot more water to maintain. So you combine a higher biological need for water with a completely broken thirst mechanism, and man, you have a recipe for chronic dehydration.
The psychology behind this is pretty dangerous too. 80% of adults think that feeling thirst means they're already dehydrated. And while that statement is technically true, thirst is a lagging indicator, the massive mistake is waiting for that broken thirst mechanism to prompt you to take a drink in the first place. If you're a man over 65 and you're just waiting around to feel thirsty, you are putting yourself at a 30% increased risk of kidney stones, a 10% decline in cognitive function, and you're vastly increasing your risk of delirium. You just can't rely on thirst anymore. Period.
Which brings us to our final section, number 5, your blueprint for healthy aging.
All right, it is time to write the new operating manual. Here is your 65-plus blueprint. First things first, we absolutely reject that frail tea and toast lifestyle. You need to aim for 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal to overcome anabolic resistance, and you want to prioritize the amino acid leucine. Second, to protect your heart and your bones, look into supplementing 90 to 120 micrograms of vitamin K2 daily, specifically that MK7 variant we talked about. Third, you must hydrate on a schedule. Drink by the clock, never ever wait for thirst. And finally, none of this works to its full potential unless you give your body a reason to rebuild. That means you've got to pair all this great nutrition with regular resistance training.
Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on today. The science of aging has evolved so rapidly, and the nutritional rules you might have learned decades ago, they just aren't going to cut it if you want to thrive today. So ask yourself, are you actively applying this new health span blueprint, or are you still trying to run your body on an outdated manual? The choice of how you upgrade your system is entirely in your hands. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.